Hello, this is Sheiley from Sheepishly made in MCS Livestock. Today we'll be doing the needle felting tutorial for a red fox. So watch along and happy felting.
So here are some of the colors we'll be using today. I'm going to start off with some core wool, and I'm going to wrap it up very tightly. Now we want to make kind of a cone shape for the body of the fox. So I am wrapping it very tightly, and I'm turning the bottom in as I'm going along to make the bottom wider than the top. The end, you can wrap the end tightly around and then start felting. You just want to felt all over your shape. You want to make the bottom nice and flat and round. Remember that the bottom of the body is where the fox will be sitting on, so you want to make it more flat. So once you have your body felted, you want to make it nice and dense so it doesn't squish very much. And then we will start adding the beginnings of the legs. So I just take a little bit of wool and add it kind of in a circle on one side. It's kind of like the hip and the upper part of the leg. So you want to do this on both sides. Just make sure they're on opposite sides and that there's a good space in between them. About an inch on mine is the space in between them. So you want to just make a raised circle on the bottom of your body here. And so just add a little bit of wool at a time until you can see the raised circle. And now you can start to see the shape forming. Now we're going to work on the head for the rest of the video. So for the head, I'm taking a little bit of core wool and wrapping it very tightly, just in a cylinder at first. And I'll start felting it. Now you kind of want to make the head shape at this point a football shape. And we'll add the muzzle on the front of the face. So to make it in a football shape, kind of leave the ends of, when you're wrapping it, kind of leave the ends a little bit looser and thinner, and that way you can have a wider middle and then a smaller end. And you can see the football shape start to form. I kind of make it like a flattened football, so I have the back of the head and the front of the head. And measuring it up against the body every once in a while is a good idea to make sure it's not too big and not too small. So I'm going to start adding the muzzle here. So I'm taking a little bit of my white wool and wrapping it up into a little ball or a little cylinder, and then putting that on the front towards the bottom of our face. And I'm going to felt that to the head. I felt it mostly at the base into the head. And you can add more as needed. And I'm adding a little bit to like where the bottom jaw is and on the front of the nose to make it a little bit more pronounced. And you can see that coming out from our head. And now I'm going to add a little bit more wool to make the head a little bit wider from top to bottom. And I'm just going to do this on the bottom right now. My head wasn't big enough, so I make adjustments on the go. If yours is shaped correctly, then you are good to go. But I'm just folding a little bit of wool and adding it to the bottom. And now we're going to start adding some color. So the orange, you want the orange to be completely covering the head, besides from the bottom of the muzzle down is going to be white. But on the front, you can take the orange across the head and on half of the muzzle. And then on the back side, you can do that completely in orange. So using just a little bit of wool at a time, you can add the color. You just want to use a little bit, just enough so you don't see the white underneath. And now we're going to add some fuzziness to the face. So I'm taking a little bit of the orange wool and adding it along kind of the sides of the head and to the side where it comes kind of to a point. I leave that kind of fluffy and don't felt that down too much, so it comes to a fluffy point. And I'm going to do this on both sides. And then we'll start working on the ears. So I'm taking a little bit of black and making it into a triangle shape. And then I'm just going to start felting it flat. It's a flat piece of my felting mat, which you just want to felt very lightly. And pick it up and turn it over several times and felt it. I'm not pushing my needle in very far, just very lightly, just enough to go through the wool. I'm measuring it up against my head. Sometimes it does take a while to make a nice flat piece the way you like it. And then we're going to add some white to the inside of the ear. Just a little bit of white I'm adding. And same thing, felt very lightly, especially with the white, because if you felt and push your needle in too far, it'll come out on the back side. So if it's coming out on the back side of the ear, you can add a little bit more black to cover it. And when you finish the first ear, make a second ear, and then we will attach them to the head. So we want to attach them kind of to the side of the crown of the head and hold the ear on. Or if you have a pin, you can also take like a sewing pin and push it into the ear and into the head to hold it, so you don't have to hold the ear. And then you want to start felting into the ear and into the head. You want to do this around the base of the ear. And I do this a little bit more slowly to have more precision. And just do it around the whole entire ear until you can tug on the ear and it's securely fastened to the head. And you can repeat this for the second ear. Just make sure you're checking that they're even on the head. And now we're going to make the nose on our fox. I just took a little bit of black and made a ball, a little tiny ball, and put it on the tip of the muzzle. And I'm just felting it on. And now I'm going to make where the eyes are. So I want to make kind of an indentation. This will help shape the muzzle as well. So you want to go from where the muzzle is attached to the head and go up into a triangle shape. It should be directly below the ear, about the size of the ear, a little bit smaller depending on how big your ears are. And you just want to felt into the head and create this indentation, this space, this little triangle space. And as you can see, it starts to shape that muzzle and the shape of the head a little bit more. And now I'm taking a little bit of wool. I blended a little bit of the orange with red and putting that into this triangle space I made. This will be the base color under the eye. Do the same thing on the other side. And then we'll start to make the eye itself. So I start with some black and make a little circle of black. And just felt that right on. Just a little bit of black. You don't want to use too much. You can add more if needed. And then I'm doing a lighter color around the eye, kind of a, you can use a brown or a tan. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And then we'll add the whites in the eye here. So take a little bit of white and ball it up. You want it smaller than the eye itself. And just grab it with your needle. And I usually place these in the upper right corners of the eye. We'll do this on both sides. Just a little bitty bit of white. Don't use too much. You don't want it taking over the whole eye. And then I'm going to add a second one below that that's even smaller. Just a tiny bit of white. You can barely see it. And we have our eyes. Now I'm going to add white to the bottom of the head like I did with the orange. I usually use white over top of my core wool because some of my core wool is a little bit more yellow in color, so I like to use a nice bright white for where my whites are. So I'm going to cover that up first and add a little bit more for the bottom jaw. And then we can add the details for the mouth once you have a nice bottom jaw. If you have a nice bottom jaw already, then you can just add the details of the mouth with a little bit of black wool. So I'm just going to come down from the center of the nose with a little bit of black wool and just go out to each side slightly. And then I'm going to make a little bit of a pool of black underneath. And that's all of most of the detail. And now I'm going to go add my white like I did with my orange to make it a little bit fuzzier in the sides of the head. Just taking a little bit of wool and letting it come to that point and letting it be a little bit more fuzzy and free. I'm going to do that to both sides, and then we'll be all done with our head. So thank you for watching part 1 of the needle felted fox tutorial. Now you want to go watch part 2 to finish our fox. Thanks. Happy felting.